happy. No, you won't. Until you try. You'll never be happy. You'll never be happy.
All right, welcome to WASA Distance Education. This is MEL3E, Math for Everyday Life, grade 11. I'm Pete, I'm your teacher, and welcome to our class this morning. So we're getting towards the end here. We just have another 2 weeks, and after today, one more class to go. So we'll have probably the last week will be mostly review, which will be good. We'll go through everything, make sure that you're able to solve all the questions that you need to be able to solve for the final exam. And next week we'll be wrapping up the course material, and we will also be looking at the culminating activity. Okay, so and we'll spend quite a bit of time on that because I want to make sure that you're able to work your way through it. So if you tune in, if you follow along with the class, you'll be able to do the culminating activity, and we'll probably go over each step, maybe one class, maybe 2 steps in a class for that culminating activity. Okay, so if you can get a hold of it today, this week, that would be really helpful. And I just want to emphasize it looks like a pretty thick document, but really it won't take you long to do it, and it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be a big ordeal. Okay. Now we're working our way through lesson 18, which is actually another one of those lessons where we're doing the activity kind of together. I've been doing some of it. I've been kind of showing you a representative sample of it. And so if you follow along, you should be able to do this lesson 18 and just hand it in. And it's pretty much identical to the first couple of parts of the culminating activity. Okay, the scenario for the culminating activity is a little different, the story, the background story, but it's pretty much going to be the same idea. You're going to be planning a trip, and you're going to be looking up distances and calculating fuel and things like that. So it is pretty similar. Okay. Now, as you're looking at that culminating activity, it's the story for the culminating activity is it's a band, and you're going to have a show, whatever. So if you want to do something else, it's fine as long as it has something to do with selling tickets and selling merchandise. If you want to have a dance party instead of a band, you can certainly do that. Okay, and we're just looking for you to be able to plan a big event like that. All right. So yesterday we were looking at lesson 18 here, and we are on page 27 of Unit 4. Okay, and so the scenario that they gave us was that you're planning a driving vacation from Sioux Lookout to Calgary with your family next summer, and that's the sort of thing that people do. This would be the time, to do something like that. Because then you get to figure out, how what you need. Obviously, if it's something that you can plan, sometimes you have to travel in an emergency. But usually, if you're going to plan something, you're going to plan it well in advance, and then you can take advantage of booking things early and saving some money for it, and maybe trying to coordinate your schedule with someone if you're going to stay with them. So the scenario here is you're planning a driving vacation from Sioux Lookout to Calgary with your family next summer. So family, whoever you want to bring. Use the internet to plan your route there. Make at least one overnight stop on the way and one on the way back. Name the main communities along the route. Okay. So you're going to use Google Maps to find the distances and driving times. And then they said to round the number of traveling hours between communities to the nearest 1/4 of an hour. What we noticed there was the two that I rounded both got rounded down. So there's a bit of inaccuracy doing that. That's one of those cases where it doesn't seem to be working out. Because normally when you round, some items get rounded up, some get rounded down. So you know, yeah, you can ask yourself, is that the right way to do it? Would it be better to have the time be too long on your chart rather than too short? So just something to ask yourself as you're doing these. So so the way I did this, I finished off the first day. Had us go the second day. So I got us all the way out to Calgary. Okay, and I showed you how to do that. We ended up with 1,780 kilometers, 12 and a half hours of driving over 2 days. Okay, and again, some people would say 12 and a half hours, I can do that. I can do that in one day, right? And it's true, some people can. Okay, so, but you really have to know your, abilities, right? And let's say that you're going to travel there with say you're going to let your teenager drive for some of the way, right? And they're not very experienced drivers. They can't drive as far as you can, right? So something to keep in mind. Stuff like that. So knowing how long it's going to take, you can figure out who gets to drive for how long and where you got to stop. And it's very helpful. When I used to travel down the United States, I didn't really plan my stops all that much because pretty much every exit, literally every exit, there'd be a hotel. So there was never any risk. You drive until you get tired and then you just pull over at the next exit and stop at a hotel. But in Canada, things are way different, especially in the north here. And you can drive for many, many hours and without a hotel. So you really need to know long before you get tired that it's time to pull over. You sort of pull over, plan your stops, okay, for safety. Okay, so the part that we kind of skipped over yesterday, and I did that deliberately. Obviously, don't want to do the whole thing. So part two was you're planning the return trip back to Sulika. Okay, but I just wanted to kind of point out, just make sure that it's clear. So we're going back to Sioux Lookout, and then it says indicate where you'll stay each night and the number of kilometers you drive each day, the number of hours. So it's the same as the trip there. The difference is it sort of seems that they want you to have a different route back, different route back. Sorry, I'm trying to pronounce that word in a Canadian way. Um, so I got into a habit of saying it in the American way when I worked down in Texas. So they want to have a different route back, it seems, anyway. So just sort of go along with that. So we have Calgary, Brooks, and you can fill it in a couple of other places. Now, they also want you to have um, one overnight stay. So do keep that in mind. At least one overnight stay. You could have two if you want. No problem there. All right. And then they want you to calculate the total number of kilometers. This is kind of just make sure you do that because you're going to need that piece of information later on. It's kind of jammed at the bottom of the page here. So it's basically the summary or the sum of the first step and the second step, where the trip there and then the trip back. Okay, it's probably going to be very close to double, but just work out the actual amount. Now, what I did yesterday, and this is on page 29, I worked out the fuel consumption and the cost based on just one way. Okay, so the way I did this yesterday is perfectly fine. You can use that way, but you're going to have to find different numbers. Okay, because this number here, the 1780, that's only the one way. So you're going to have to instead use the two-way number, and you're going to end up with an amount of gas. It's quite a bit more um, than uh, than what we calculated. Okay, but it gives you a real insight into how much it costs to drive long distances. Okay, so even using a fairly low cost for fuel and that's a pretty reasonable fuel economy right there. We still ended up with $188.24. The calculation kind of got, we kind of went from we had to skip over this the second question here to keep doing the calculation. There's two parts to the calculation of the fuel, and I do see students when we're doing these fuel economy and fuel consumption calculations, I see them quite a bit making this mistake. So I'm going to point it out to you. They tend to not really do the two steps. So the first step is how much fuel. So you're going to use the distance and the fuel consumption rate. Okay, so that's what you're going to use there. So you need the distance and you need the fuel consumption rate. Cons rate. Okay, that's what you're going to need there. And you just multiply them together. Now the text shows a different way of doing it. I just multiply the distance times the numerator of the fuel consumption rate divided by the denominator. You just do that in one step in your calculator. In this case, 1780 times 9.7 divided by 100. And that gives you the same answer you'd get following the method in the text. Okay. All they do is they take this fuel consumption rate and turn it into a unit rate, because it's actually it's 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers. So they just divide that out first, and you get a certain number of liters per kilometer, which is a very small number. And then you multiply that by the distance. It works out to be the same thing, just one extra step. Okay. So once you have that worked out, then you're going to have a number in liters, and that's the amount of fuel you're going to use. Okay, so that's something to think about, and then you can actually figure out if your tank, if it holds 60 liters, right? I think my car holds 60 or 65. It's got a sort of a cruising highway type fuel tank. Maybe truck might even hold more, 80 liters. So you'll have an idea of how often you're going to have to stop and get gas. If a couple of cans of gas might help you when you're out there, especially if the prices are lower, maybe that'll help you lower your costs. Okay. So we worked out 172.7 liters and 173 if you want. So that's the first step. The second step is the cost of fuel. And for that, you need to know the amount of fuel, okay, in liters, and then the cost per liter. Okay, so that's step 2, and it's just a matter of taking the amount of fuel and just multiplying it by the cost per 1 liter of fuel. Okay, now it's just you're multiplying these two numbers together. You could divide by 1, but it doesn't change anything, right? It's 172.7 times $1.09 per liter, $1.09, and then you can divide it by 1, but you don't really have to. Okay, so we worked out that it was 188.24. Your actual number will probably be twice that, or something very close. Okay. So the next question, and sorry, I ran out of room there, so I kind of messed up this page a lot. The next question was part B here, and the idea behind this is to kind of get you to realize that even little side trips that you're going to take have a cost to them. And sometimes those costs can be quite shocking, quite surprising. And it makes a difference between you, say, there's a place you really want to go and a couple places you're not sure about. And if you're planning your trip and you work out all the costs, you might realize that those places you're not really sure about, it's going to cost you so much that it might impact your ability to go and really enjoy the place you really want to go, right? So that's the whole point about planning things out. If you really want to go to this museum, which probably from what I heard is pretty good, but you really have to know that it's going to cost you. So here we go. We did B down here, and we worked it out that Calgary to Drumheller to this museum for part B was a total of 276 kilometers. So quite surprising, because everyone tells you that when you're in Calgary you should go there, but it's like driving to Dryden and back from Sioux Lookout, I guess, maybe even a little further. So, it's not a small little trip. It has some cost to it. So we worked out that we're going to use 26.8 liters, so 27 liters, and then it turns out that it costs us $25.09 to get there and back. It's not bad, but here's what you can do with that information. Okay, let's say that you have there's a bunch of family, 4 or 5 of you, and you certainly don't want to take a taxi out there. That would probably be very expensive, but maybe there's a bus that goes out to Drumheller, right? And maybe that bus is $5 each, right? So then you can work out, is that, maybe that's going to be cheaper than driving. Maybe it's going to be about the same, but then I don't have to drive. Maybe, if your fuel economy was not as good as this, maybe it'll cost you more to drive out there, and then it's a good deal to take the bus. Maybe there's a bus that will take you all out there for a $10 flat fee. Then you can say, well, that's cheaper than driving. Maybe we should just take the bus. The other thing is you got to figure out if there's parking. You have to pay for parking when you get there because that's an extra cost as well, right? So there's information. The more information you have, the more you can use it in planning things, and that's what this whole course is about, right? Is being able to take a bunch of information and use it to make prudent decisions. Okay. All right. Now, whoops, what happened here? Okay. All right. I thought there was a question about buying, buy. I thought part of it was about the tickets and stuff like that. Oh well. Uh, so actually, I think it is a little. Let's have a look. I just want to see if breakfast. Okay, there it is. Okay, so there were a couple of questions. Calgary Zoo and Royal Tyrrell museum. So that's the other sort of part of planning things is kind of coming up with all the costs. Okay, so not just the cost of gas to get there, not just the cost of staying somewhere, but actually all the costs. The cost to drive to the place, cost to park, cost for admission for you and your whole family, and so then you have a really good idea of how much something costs, and then you can decide how much you value going there, right? So not to discourage anyone because these are some fun things to do, but it's the difference between having money in your pocket and not, and making decisions about what you're going to spend that money on. So in this, let's see, I think, did I skip over a bunch of stuff? No, okay. So the next part of this question is the cost of accommodations, such as a hotel, a motel, or a bed and breakfast. Okay, so, and if the best source of information about something like that, if it's available, is someone who's been there before, right? If you ask someone and say, where did you stay on your trip out to Calgary? And they say, we stayed at this bed and breakfast and it was really good. It didn't cost much and the food was good and everything was nice and clean and it was easy to find. That's the sort of information you want to get. You can also have someone saying, yeah, we stayed at this place and it was a dump and we'd never stay there again. That's good because you cross that place off your list, right? So that's the best source of information. The next best source of information, just look on the internet, and then you're taking a chance, right? But pretty soon you plan these trips enough, you'll sort of get a sense sometimes for what you can, what sorts of places you want to stay in, right? What's your what the risks are for the cheaper places. So here you go. So we need the accommodations. So if we look at where we said we were going to stay on the first night, because I think I can only do the first night here. So what I said was that we were going to stay in Brandon, Manitoba on the first day, and then we're going to end up in Calgary on the second day. So for me, my answer to this is going to be Brandon the first day. Brandon, I think it was Manitoba, and then on the way back, there's a couple of places that you'll be stopping, or maybe just one, and you'll fill those in. Oh, okay. So it says you will calculate. See, here's the thing, right? You will calculate the cost of a hotel while you're in Calgary in question 5. Okay, so we don't need that then. So really, this is on the trip out. We're going to stay in Brandon, so we just need one more. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, if I don't know someone who's been to Brandon, if I did, I would ask them where they stayed. Okay. If I knew someone that was in Brandon, maybe I'd ask to stay with them. Okay. But because I don't know, I'm going to have to just look on the internet. That's all I can do. Okay. All I can do. So I'm going to just go on the internet here. Whoop. Okay. So Brandon. Okay. And what am I going to do? Brandon, Manitoba, MB, hotel. Okay, so hotels. Okay, and yeah, so then you have all these hotels. Expedia, Booking. Now, one of the things that they say is that if if you book the hotel directly with them, it's usually the cheapest, but it's really hard to say. If you've used some of these places before, if you have an account with Expedia or whatever, maybe you'll get a better deal, right? Now, sponsored is kind of neat because that means that these folks paid Google to put them in there, right? 2 star, 3 star. I don't even know what the stars are all about. But another way of doing it is to say to yourself, okay, what hotels do you like staying in, right? Have you stayed in a hotel before? Okay, so let's say I've never stayed in Brandon, Manitoba, but I've stayed in a Holiday Inn Express before. Okay, and I really liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Um, so there you go. So Brandon, Manitoba. Now, the reason I'm making really sure that I include Manitoba in there is that we don't want to book a hotel in Brandon, Saskatchewan or in Brandon, Texas, right? And there's probably going to be some of those. So that's why I'm being real careful to make sure I include the province in there. So it says Holiday Inn Express Hotel, Brandon, official site, and it looks like it is the official site. You got to be really careful that you're not going to, because sometimes these ads come up and it looks like the official site, but it's actually some third-party booking site. Okay, so my goal here is to actually book on the Holiday Inn website, because I think that gives you the best deal. Maybe I'm wrong though, and you can certainly ask someone. Okay. So what does this say? You see, here's an interesting thing. So this says Holiday Inn Express Tampa Brandon. That's in Brandon, Florida. That's not where we want to go. It looks like a nice hotel. There's palm trees next to it. Definitely not going to work out for us. So this is not correct. They gave us Brandon, Florida, even though we clearly asked for Brandon, Manitoba. So let's go back. So it doesn't look like that's gonna work. So maybe they just don't have one there. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we could ask for what's another good one? Days in. Uh, okay. So this is where the research it's sometimes kind of, it can take some time, right, to do this research, which is why you don't want to leave it till the last minute. Okay. So there's days in Canada, Brandon. Okay, the Canada makes me feel better because I think that I might have a better chance of finding a room there. Okay, there it is. Days Inn and Suites Brandon. It says Brandon, Manitoba. And if we weren't really sure about it, we could actually look it up on Google Maps and um, see where see where it is. Okay, there we go. There's a map. It shows us. Okay, so it's just outside of Winnipeg, so that's kind of interesting. I guess we'd go through Winnipeg and stop on the other side of Winnipeg. That's not a bad deal, um, right? Because that way we could plan our trip so that we go through Winnipeg maybe after rush hour, so there's not so much traffic, so that's not bad. So there it shows you where the hotel is. That looks like it's probably good. It looks like it's just off the Trans-Canada. It's not too far off the Trans-Canada. And then there might be some other things that you have to keep in mind, right? Maybe um, maybe you want a hotel with a mall nearby, right? Maybe that's important to your family or the people you're traveling with. So then you would try to find out if there's a mall nearby, right? Maybe you want to go to the movies that night. That's, a fun thing to do. And so maybe you would want to pick a hotel that's close to the movies, right? So there's a lot of different considerations when you're picking something like this, but planning ahead is the number one thing, right? And then you can make a list of all the requirements that you're going to try to meet. You may not even meet all of them, right? But it could be quite useful. An example is like if you're staying in Thunder Bay, I like to stay at some of the places there. But one time I was staying at a place and I wanted to go to a movie, but I didn't have a car, and it was $20 to get to the movie theater from the hotel I was at, right? Whereas there's a hotel right across from the movie theater. I could have stayed there. Maybe it would have cost me a little bit more money, maybe 20 extra dollars, but it would have been cheaper than taking a cab there and back to the movie theater. So, all right, so it looks like there's $124. That's the rate. So then you check the rate. Now the rate really depends on when you're going to stay, and also how far in advance that you're booking, right? So if we're booking a trip for August or July, then we're probably doing all right. But if we're just booking a trip for a week from now, we might not get as good a rate. Okay, so the earlier you can book, the better. So you can see it's a lot of it's $124, and then you've got to find out what that gets you. Okay, one room. Yeah, let's see, rooms. Uh, yeah, it's yeah, I'm not really sure. We just have to kind of go and look here and see what kind of room we're going to get. Rooms and rates. There we go. Rooms and rates. Okay, so one king bed, it depends on, again, how many do you need? Two bed, three, four? Do you need a cot, right? So there's a lot of things to consider when you're booking it. Maybe you need two rooms, right? If you're going with your whole family, right? Okay, and I don't know how that came up. Something popped up. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna call this. I'm just gonna say it was $124. That seems to be the rate. Um, hmm. Yeah, so they don't really want to give me an exact amount until I pick the date, and that it's because on a Saturday in the summer it'll be more than on a Saturday during the winter time or something like that. So we can call it $124. I'm comfortable with that, and that's the other thing about planning. Sometimes you don't have all the information that you need, but it's okay. It's all right. You use the information you have, and as long as you are aware of the fact. So I'm going to write down that $124. And if I was planning this out, I might put a little asterisk saying it's an estimated rate. Right? I haven't booked it yet. I'll know the exact rate when I book it. Okay. So then taxes. Let's see. Where are we? We're in Manitoba. So according to this chart, it's going to be 7%. So we don't need to know oh, I see. We do need to know the taxes. So we're going to find 7%, which is just 0.07 times $124. We actually need to know the taxes here because it asks for the taxes. Oops. All right, so 0.07 times 124, and it's not much. It's $8.68. Well, I guess that's a meal at McDonald's, isn't it? Okay, so then we'll add that to see if we just needed the total cost, then we would have just used our little trick of taking 1.07 times. So 132.68. So already you notice that the difference between what it said that the price was and what we're actually going to pay when we check out is already a little different, right? So there's other things to check with the hotel though. You want to make sure some hotels are starting to do this now, and that you can ask around. Do they charge um, something called a resort fee? Okay, so any hotels with a pool, any hotels with like a sauna, a water slide or anything kind of fancy like that, sometimes they're charging you a mandatory resort fee, $10 a day, $20 a day, and they don't always advertise that in their price. And people get kind of surprised when they check in and it's, oh yeah, it's 124, but of course there's the mandatory $10 or $20 a day resort fee, which basically is, in other words, the hotel isn't the price it was listed. It's $20 a day more. Okay, so something to check. And you know, there are certain chains that'll do it, certain chains that don't. It's not as common now in Canada, but certainly down in the States, it's getting to be more and more common. And it all has to. It's sort of like airlines charging you extra money for baggage, right? Because they want to advertise the lowest price, but they don't want, but they still want more of your money than they advertise. All right, so just something to keep in mind is that you want to make sure when you're reading everything on the website that you covered all the prices. If you need to, you can send them an email. There's usually a link somewhere on the website to send the company an email and just ask them the question directly. Is this everything or are there extra fees? Okay. And then the other thing to check is if you need a credit card or something to check into these places. Sometimes they ask for a credit card. Sometimes they ask for cash if you don't have a credit card. You have to pay in advance. So again, something just to kind of check because, you know, if you were planning to use your debit card to pay for the hotel, but then they want cash if you don't use a credit card, it makes things kind of awkward. Okay. So now we know how much our cost is. Now, what if we needed 2 rooms? Well, we'd have to double all of that, right? And then that would be it. So for this trip, there'd be another entry here for wherever you're going to stop on your return, and you would calculate that. Okay. All right. Now here we go. Use the internet to find the price of an accommodation in Calgary. Okay, 7 nights in Calgary. Okay. So now again, we gotta go to the internet, or you could find out from somebody where you're going to stay. Now, could you say that, um, let's say we could try Days Inn. Maybe Days Inn has like a discount card, right? If you stay enough nights. Calgary, Alberta. Hmm. Okay. Oh well, maybe they don't have a Days Inn in Alberta. Okay. Oops. Google.ca. Google.ca. All right. Well, maybe I'll try a Holiday Inn Express. Maybe they have one in Calgary. Hopefully, we're not going to get this same problem that we had where they give us the wrong Calgary. Let's double check. That's Calgary, Alberta. There we go. And there's 8 of them. Okay, so that's great. We have lots and lots of selection. Now, one of the things that you'll find, the ones near the airport tend to have higher prices, but it's just a matter of clicking on them to find out. But any that are really close to the airport tend to be more than, say, the ones that are closer to the Trans-Canada. Okay, so it's kind of hard to say where these are. You're going to have a map and just sort of see where, which one is more convenient to where you want to stay. Okay, so there is some planning to do there. This one, let's see. Okay, this one's right downtown Calgary, so maybe that's where we want to stay. But then we can check the price. All right, let's try it. All right, it says summer, so let's try. And it's 7 days, right? So maybe we'll go from um, yeah, there you go. And then our checkout would be um, a week. I think that's 7 nights. And then the best available rate. Now there's other rates you might have, like a AAA if you have an Auto Club, if you have a Government of Canada rate somehow. Senior discount, maybe if someone's traveling with you that has a senior discount, you can try to get a good rate. Check availability is usually pretty good. So there you go. Now you see the prices are quite a bit more than the one that in Brandon, right? So, so it's $370.29. That's a lot. So could you find a better place? You probably could find a cheaper place, but then maybe it's going to be out in the country. Maybe it's going to be a little further outside of Calgary. Maybe, you'd have to take a lot of taxis into town, right? If this one is right downtown and it's right across the street from some mall that you want to go to, yeah, maybe it's worth it, right? And that's the sort of thing that you're going to do for your planning. Okay, so I'm going to use the 370.29 amount, even though maybe that's more. 370. It was $370.29 per night. Okay, so and then this is where was that? Was that forgotten where it was? It's Holiday Inn Express, Calgary. We'll just call it Holiday Inn Express. HI Express. Now, actually, the cost, I'm going to put the daily cost, $370.29 per day. Okay. And in fact, if we go and read the fine print, what we might find is that the daily price is different on the weekends. It might be more. And then they'll give us the total price. But just for our purposes, we'll just multiply this by 7. Um, so 7 times 370, 29. Okay, so 7 times 370, 29. Okay, so that's 259140. And then let's see, we're in Alberta, so there's no provincial sales tax. Oh, it says there's GST in all provinces. Did I miss that in the previous one? Yeah, I missed that one. Ouch. Okay, so I made a mistake in that previous one, because really it should have been 12% total. So this should be 12. I'm going to fix that. 0.12. Okay, and I'll just come back and fix that. I got this number here, so it's 5% of this because there's no PST, I guess, on, well, in Alberta, according to this anyway. So 0.05 times 259140 equals, so times 0.05. Okay, so it's $129.57 tax, and then the total cost then, so plus 259140. Okay, so again, we ask the question when you check in very often, if you're going to be staying for 7 nights and you're going to be racking up a bill like that, very often they're going to want a credit card. And they're going to want a credit card that has enough room on it to pay for, almost $3,000. Okay, so again, something to keep in mind because otherwise it could get kind of awkward when you're checking in. And I've seen them ask people for cash deposits. It's it doesn't seem right, but they ask people if they're not paying by credit card for cash deposits. Okay. So that would be something to check with the hotel before you go there. And if you're going to need $200 cash deposit or $300 cash deposit, at least you'll know in advance and you can decide either to stay there or not. And if you decide to stay there, you'll have the cash on you, right? You'll stop at a bank machine and bring it in. Okay, so it's all about planning ahead. Now let me go fix this mistake. This is why I love math so much. Made a mistake up here, and no problem. Just go cross it out, fix it. Right. All right. Now, so it's $124 times. It was 0.12. So what I did was I didn't because they broke it down in GST and PST rather than HST, which is what I'm used to. I just kind of goofed a little bit, but I caught it, so we're good. We're good. So now it's plus 124, 138.88. Okay. So I got that fixed. All right. So, and again, when I'm marking something like this, am I going to check every single calculation you do? Maybe not. But what I'm looking for is your 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 understanding, a demonstration that you understand how to do this stuff. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so a little tiny mistake like that, probably not such a big deal. But we just want to make sure that you know how to do these calculations, you know how to look stuff up, and that you can sort of pull it off. All right, so there we go. So total cost. So as we're going through this, I hope you get to see now that there's a huge advantage to planning something like this out, right? I know it can be a lot of fun to just hop in a car and go, but if you do that, you're kind of putting yourself, you're not necessarily going to spend your money as efficiently, right? You're not going to get the most fun for your money necessarily, right? Because maybe you'll stay in a hotel that's costs more than you really want to because you didn't book in advance. And I don't know, but certainly out in Alberta, it's probably the same as around Ontario. In the middle of the summer, if you don't book your hotel weeks in advance, you might not get one, you know. So you might end up staying at some place. I was driving into Thunder Bay one time. It's true story, and this was actually not that. It was in the fall, so it wasn't even in the summer. Anyway, no, maybe it was in the spring. Anyway, so I go to my usual place, my usual hotel, and it's usually $100 a night. And I go there, and they said, well, the only room we have left is $450 a night. Do you want it? This is like 10 o'clock at night. I've been driving for, you know, 12 hours. Yeah, so I didn't plan ahead, right? Well, it's because I couldn't really plan ahead, and that's, that kind of happens. So that was really, that was a shock, 10 o'clock at night. So they think they're going to sell that room, um, sometime after 10 o'clock, but probably they would. And at that time, the rooms were in short supply. So, I didn't want to stay there, so I just got back in my car and actually drove all the way back to Sioux Lookout. So another 5 hours. Not smart, really. But there you go, right? I could have, ended up spending more money than I really wanted to, because I just didn't have an advanced plan. So, whenever possible, if you can plan stuff, it works. It works out much better. So here we go. Question 6. Now it says use a daily estimate of breakfast. Now this is kind of cool because you will actually have more insight into this. Lunch $15 and supper $30 to calculate the cost of meals for your family for the whole trip. Okay, so remember we're staying for 7 days in Calgary, right? We're staying one night in one night. Actually, it's 2 days traveling is what it is. Um, Traveling to Calgary, and then it's 2 days traveling back. Presumably, we haven't worked that out yet. Okay, so I think I have this. So this should be 11 days altogether. Okay, we'll just assume that they're full days. Maybe we might leave after breakfast, come back before dinner, but it's just a good idea to have an idea, right? So how much is the daily? I'm just going to kind of do my calculations over here. So it's the daily is 10 plus 15 plus 30. So that's going to be what, $55 a day. Now you can look at that number and you could say $30. That's how much my family spends in snacks, right? Maybe you got a teenager probably gonna have to have $60 for supper to keep them going, right? But maybe you have someone that doesn't eat quite so much, right? And it might work out, it might even out, but you know how much money it's going to cost you. Maybe that's a good estimate. Maybe it's a terrible estimate, right? So you would decide how much you're going to do. Maybe you're going to bring snacks. So for example, supper, $30. Well, maybe you plan to eat at McDonald's. So it's not going to be $30. It's still going to be a lot though. It's not going to be $5, right? Maybe you'll bring some toast or some bread and jam with you and a toaster, and you can actually make your own breakfast. Or if you stay at places, some of these hotels offer a breakfast as part of the price. Right now, maybe it'll be worth it if you have your whole family, and you just stay at those places. Right. So there's a lot of ways to kind of work it out and minimize your food cost, or just know in advance what they're going to be. So we have 11 days here and $55 a day. So it's 11 times 55. Can we do that on our calculator? Okay, so I got $605 a day, and that's just an estimate because we're not really calculating tax there. We're just kind of saying that's about what it's going to be. $605 in food. Okay. So, maybe you'll decide that buying a couple of loaves of bread, getting a cooler together, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it isn't worth it because then somebody has to prepare that. And so these are all decisions. Now, calculate the cost of admission to Calgary Zoo. Okay, you can do that. I'll let you do that. This one, Royal Tyrrell Museum, I'll show you that one. Okay, because remember, we worked out it's going to cost us $25 to drive there and back, but how much does it cost to actually go there? And while we're at it, we will also work out to see if it costs to park there. Okay. All right. So Royal admission. Okay, I think I mistyped it. So there we go. And I want to make sure that I go to the actual website, because one of the things that the companies will do is they'll pay Google money to put their business right up top here. And there's actually companies that will sell you tickets for something that you can just buy yourself, right? So you got to be careful that it is indeed the actual place you're looking at, and it's not some ticket seller. So here we go. All right. So here's the day admissions. Adult, 13. All right, you want 2 days, 1 day. Senior, okay. Youth, so 7 to 17. And then children, 6 and under, free. So, oops, sorry. So there you go, right? And a family, so there you go. Maybe that's the plan you're going to get, right? Family, 2 adults and their children aged 7 to 17 to a maximum group size of $8, $35. So it sort of seems like it might be $35 if you're going with your family. Okay? So that's pretty good, right? And one of the things I'm sort of wondering is if there's parking there, amenities, maybe that would be it. Parking. Parking at the museum is free of charge. Okay, so that's important to know because some places it's another $10, $20 for parking, and you have to calculate that in the cost of going there. So I think what we got worked out here is that for our family to go visit them, it's $35. It's actually not bad. If you go to Disney, it would be an awful lot more, or if you go to like Canada's Wonderland, it would be pretty expensive. So it looks like it's going to be $35 family. Okay, so and that's what you're going to get, and it doesn't. I don't think that they charge any kind of tax on museum admissions. Okay. Now here's an interesting question, because if you want to go to the Royal Tyrrell Museum and look at the fossils, the dinosaurs, and kind of take the tour, that's great, but there's a certain cost to that, right? You have to travel there, you have to buy the pass, you have to go look at and then you're going to look at the fossils, and there's a certain cost. But now buying souvenirs is a bit optional, right? Because at the end of the tour, there's a gift shop, and they're going to sell you a stuffed dinosaur, and they're going to sell you a plastic model of a dinosaur. They're going to sell you a dinosaur skeleton model, stuff like that, right? So how much is that going to cost, right? Is it even possible to work out how much that's going to be in advance? right? So let's go have a look here and see if we can find anything to shop. Okay, there it is. So they do have a gift shop, and okay, so what they're telling us right here is that they don't have an online presence. So, how are we going to figure out how much it's going to cost? Uh, it's really hard to work out how much these costs are. Whoop, okay, amenities. Okay, yeah, we already knew the gift shop. Yeah, so the gift shop is kind of close. So you know what? We don't really know how much we're gonna, right? But what it says is that it sells branded clothing for adults and children, books about paleontology and nature, games, puzzles, jewelry, dino toys, and much more. So how are you gonna solve this question, right? We can't actually go onto the internet and solve it. We could call them, but then what are we going to ask them? How much does a stuffed dinosaur cost? So what we could say is, let's say that you can decide how much you're willing to spend for souvenirs, right? That's another way of doing it. You could ask someone that's been there and say, hey, you got a stuffed Tyrannosaurus for your kid at the Royal Tyrrell Museum. Do you remember how much that cost? You could ask them, right? Or you could just say, look, I think that we're going to go there as a once, in a lifetime opportunity. So we're going to spend maybe $30 per person, right? That's our budget, right? So that's it, $30 per person. That's how much you're going to spend there. Now, maybe someone will spend $25 for their stuffed dinosaur, and maybe that it would be okay for another person to spend $35 for their souvenir, as long as it works out to $30 per person. Okay, so that's the sort of decision you can make in advance, and then you stick to it, right? That's how much we can spend, right? Unless there's something really special when you get there, you really wanna think about it. Okay, so that's a hard answer, hard question to answer, but something like that, right? There's no prices in the gift shop online, so we just estimated that we're going to spend $30 per person, and we won't spend more than that. Okay. Okay. And you know what? I think we're pretty much going to wrap this up. Basically, here, this is where we're going to put in all of our costs: the gas there and back, the Drumheller trip and back, accommodations on the trip, accommodations in Calgary, all those meals that we worked out, the Royal Tyrrell Museum, you're going to have to go work out the Calgary Zoo, how much souvenirs will cost. We only worked out souvenirs at the museum. And remember, it's not $30, it's $30 per person, assuming that everyone gets the souvenirs. Maybe you don't want any souvenirs, right? Maybe your souvenir is watching your family enjoy their souvenirs, right? Anyway, in any case, you're going to have a number there, and then you're going to come up with a bottom line. Okay? And that's really the whole point is it's the whole point is to kind of show you what. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Okay, I think I can't hear. I can't actually hear anything. Okay, I think my mic is still working. Sorry, I just don't have any. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. I just lost the feedback in my headphones here, so it's just a very strange thing. All right. Well, I guess we can just wrap it up there. We just got a couple of minutes left, and so just to finish my thought, this is why we are doing this kind of research, right? We want to have numbers, and so we can answer this really important question number 11 right at the bottom of page 32. Is it in your budget? Okay. There's only so much money to go around, and so you have to decide what things are important and what things aren't. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for today, just a couple of minutes early, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. We'll start with lesson 19. As I said, if you can get a copy of the culminating activity and start looking it over, that would be very, very helpful. All right, well, thanks a lot for attending, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.